Hey, it's a difficult topic. It's been a rough week for UNLV folks with Lew Hill. So I want you to get into that a little bit with your experience and also Justin's experience with Lew Hill.
Yeah, it's been a tough. What is it, four or 5 days now? For me, I've shared this on the air the other day at the UNLV game, but I first got the call from Wink Adams, my former teammate, probably like 45 minutes before kickoff of the Super Bowl, and Wink, me and Wink communicate. We ran into each other at the barbershop a few months back. Wink's living in town in Vegas, but anytime Wink calls, it was unusual. So I was like, Wink's calling. Let me answer this, like just to check. And I answered it, and I was like, what's going on, Wink? And I was excited. He's like, CT, how's it going, man? I don't know if you heard the news. And I was like, wait, what do you mean? And he was like, yeah, man, Coach Hill passed away. And I was just shocked. I mean, I think I'm still in shock. It's a tough situation. And that was before the news had really broke. And so I tried to go on Twitter and try to find information about it, and I couldn't find anything. So that made me even more anxious, more nervous. But it's a tough situation. I loved Coach Hill. I had the opportunity to play with him under Coach Kruger for 4 seasons at UNLV, and he was the coach that was responsible for me for my life skills. So I had to check in with him for academics, just see how things were going. And I tell the story about how he called me into his office my freshman year. And I had slacked off my freshman year to start the school year, wasn't going to class. And he calls me in and he says, sit down, CT, and says, hold on. And he starts dialing on the phone. And someone says, hello. And he's like, hey, Miss Patty. And I'm like, you called my mom? So he literally called my mom when I'm sitting there and starts to give her the rundown of how your boy's messing up. He's not going to class. He's working hard, though. I think we need to get him in check, or do we need to send him home? And then my mom, you know how that goes. My mom turned on to me on the phone and just started ripping me. And that was all it took. But Coach Hill went to those lengths to show that he cared. He didn't have to do that. I was a walk-on my freshman year. But I think that just showed the appreciation he had for his players. And that's why he's a player's coach. And you hear guys say that his players run through a wall for him, and that's how I felt. Because he was really a great coach and had the time to spend with him at Final Fours like me and Justin do every year. We go to the Final Four, we get to hang out. But I'm curious, Justin, how did you take the news in terms of hearing about Coach Hill passed away, and kind of what impact did he have on you when you were playing?
I was shocked, honestly, because I knew they played. I follow them all the time, so I knew they played the night before. So I was checking up on their score, see if they won or lost. And then, when it first came up on Twitter, I saw his picture. I was like, okay, I heard rumors of him stepping away, just for the rest of the season because everything going on. So I thought, like, all right, he's just stepping away. But then when I read it, I was like, hold up, this doesn't sound right. Then I read it again, and it kept coming up on the timeline. I was like, okay, so let me, check in with a couple people. And that's when I found out, realistically, like, this really happened. Like, I had to pull over off on the side of the road, like, damn. Like the guy who's recruiting me that I've known since 14 years old, just all of a sudden isn't here anymore. And, I kind of like was just in shock, and I lost it for a little bit, but, as Curtis said, just been in shock these last, 4 or 5 days.
Yeah, it's tough because for me, I know it's been tough. I mean, I'm not afraid of emotions. I've spent time crying. My wife had to console me Sunday before the Super Bowl started. Monday night when they did the moment of silence at UNLV, they put his picture up there on the big screen, and it brought me to tears. It's been an emotional period. I think more so because I have kids now, and seeing how, and obviously Justin, you got kids, and seeing how the impact that these adults and coaches have on us, you don't realize until we get older. And I think that was a tough thing for me to kind of to come to grips with. But we tried to have been sharing some stories about Coach Hill, but I want you to share, in case people didn't hear it, a story about Coach Hill, about your freshman year and how you kind of felt overwhelmed and he kind of got on you in terms of how to play at the college level.
Yeah. So freshman year, you come in the summer, you do your individual workouts, in your little small group, and that's just just getting a lot of shots up, just getting prepared, conditional watch for practices. But then first week of practice came around, I want to say late September, early October, and I was just out there deer in the headlights. Everything was moving fast, offensively, defensively. I was getting bumped around, tossed around, couldn't do anything. I was like, man, I don't even know how I'm gonna survive out here. And that's just me thinking to myself, but I didn't feel like I showed it on the court, right? But then all of a sudden, one of these practices, all I hear is Coach Hill. He's like, man, come on, young fella. Come on, young fella. You looking like barbecue chicken out there, young fella. Everybody picking on you. Like, I couldn't guard the soul. Like, I come in as a defender, so I should be able to stay in front of anybody. But it's like I couldn't guard. We had Trayvon Willis, Chase Stanback, Steve Jones, Kendall Wallace. Like, I couldn't guard anybody out there. It was just bad for me. He was like, man, come on, young fella. Come on, young fella. You're looking like barbecue chicken. And then all of a sudden, like, I started picking up my play defensively, you know, doing what I'm supposed to be doing, you know, being in the right spots, getting deflections, getting steals, just, you know, just being a pest out there, you know, making it tough. And then all of a sudden, I'm hitting a couple baskets, you know, just getting a little bit of confidence, you know, I'm not going to say cockiness or anything, but just a little bit of a swag. Like, all right, it's starting to come along. And here come Coach Hill. All right, young fella, I see you out there. I see you. All right, Trey, making it difficult for you now. Then everybody knows Trey. That was back when he was, you know, Player of the Year candidate. He was like, don't worry, I got him. For the rest of practice, the rest of the week, it was bad news bears for me. ISO, one-on-one, breaking off plays, wherever he wanted, it was bad news. We got back to the locker room. Trey was like, don't ever let Coach Hill do that to you ever again. You got to know your place right now. But, you know, Coach Hill was always that dude. Like, he was going to gas you up to make sure you know, playing to the best of your abilities. But, you know, if you not doing what you're supposed to do, he's going to call you out, give you confidence. He's going to do whatever he got to do for you. But that first week of practice, he made sure that it was time to step it up.
It's funny that you say that because, and Steve, we talked about this on the pregame on Monday with Kevin's interview. He talked about how Coach Hill has the ability to get on his players, but not ride them into where they feel defeated. But he had a way to get on them to motivate them, and I thought that was interesting because that relates perfectly to Justin's story and kind of what he went through. But it encompasses the type of coach that Coach Hill really was.
Yeah, I think that was his relationship. You know, his relationship. Like I was telling one of my friends, like he recruited me since I was 14 years old. You know, and I don't think a lot of people remember, like, I committed the summer going into my junior year of high school. So, like, I committed super early. So, it was like, it was already done deal, ready to go. So, like, even though after I committed, he still made me feel like a priority. And it wasn't just basketball-wise. Like, he would call my high school teachers, like, all right, is he still doing what he's doing? Call my principal, call my mom. Like, whenever he came into town to recruit, like, it was more so coming to my games. It was like, what's going on off the court? You know, like things happen in college, you know, CT, as you know, things happen in Vegas, you know, ups and downs and all that stuff. Like it was like, all right, are you good on and off the court? And so that relationship, when he got on you, you knew like he actually cared for your well-being.
The voice of Justin Hawkins, former Rebel from 2009 to 2013. He's up with Cofield and Company. Curtis Terry is here as well. Curtis, do you mind if we reminisce a bit about Justin's era on the Rebels?
No, not at all. I'd love to.
It's interesting because Curtis is around the program now, and he's been around the program. Justin's coaching elsewhere, but I'm sure he still follows the program. To me, Vegas is always, with UNLV basketball, some Vegas fans are always like, hey, it's not enough, right? It's never enough. And like right now, people are very frustrated because UNLV is not making a run at the NCAA tournament. You know, in a regular season, they're not making runs at 20-win seasons. Just looking back on your era, Justin, like I think people forget there was some dissatisfaction, but you guys made the tournament every year, didn't you?
4 years in a row, yeah.
Like that. If you like right now, if you presented that to Rebel fans, it'd be like, "Oh my God, we're going to make the tournament 4 years in a row." Yeah, they did that, and that was less than 12 years ago.
Now that I'm coaching, I don't think people understand how hard it is to win 20 games a year, how hard it is to make the tournament every year. It's hard. It's hard. It's extremely hard. And it takes a lot of patience, a lot of understanding. A lot of things have to go right. A lot of things have to go right to get, in consideration. Like luckily for us, like people always ask me how we were able to do it for 4 years. Like we had the model that was already there, with Coach Kruger, with CT and his crew. Like it was already established. So we pretty much just came in, and just followed what they were already doing. Like I want to say, so I made it 4 years in a row. CT, well, you made it three. Did you go all four or 3 out of 4?
We went 2 years in a row. Those my last 2 years.
Yeah, your last 2 years. They didn't go 08, 09. They just missed it one year, and then when we came back my freshman year, we made it again. So out of 7 years, we went 6 out of 7 years, which is tough. And people don't realize that. But, you know, it was already the model that was there. And, like, I remember when they went to the Sweet 16, that run, I wasn't even going to class. Like, I was in the gym. I was in the gym watching them playing tournament games. I was like, all right, I'm ready to go there. Like, I'm ready to get this going. You know, I'm ready to keep it going. And it was the consistency and the standard of knowing what came before you and not letting them down. Like, I would come up on the weekends to watch them play home games and hang out with them after the game, and they would literally break it down to me. Like, young fella, this is what it is. Like, I would be at practice, I would be at shooting around watching how locked in and dialed in every one of the players were. And, like, they knew the scouting report, they knew the opposing team, they knew what they had to run offensively, they knew their switches defensively, they knew their personnel, they knew everything. And it was tough. It was tough. And I think from a player's perspective, you know, you got to understand that, you know. I talk to Marvin a lot, and he's always asked me, like, yo, how did you do it? What did you do in the locker room? What did you do off the court? What did you do on the court? Like, how did you get these guys to buy in as one? And, you know, everyone has their own – I'm not going to say they have their own agendas, but everyone's an individual, and trying to get them to be a team, that's hard to do. That's hard to do. Like, I retweeted something the other day about Ed Reed talking about the little things in the locker room, you know, during one of his Hall of Fame speeches about picking up towels and tape in the locker room, because there's guys in the locker room that will just cut it off and just leave it at their locker. But those little things matter, because that's going to be that line you miss when you're running suicides, or that's going to be that defensive assignment that you miss on a switch that could be a backbreaker and on a 6-0 run or 8-2 run. Like, those little things matter. And so that consistency and that accountability is hard. That's really, really hard to do.
It's funny you mentioned that, man, because I remember you coming in the locker room after games when I was playing, because that's how close knit it was, and we tried to make it like a family, and that was the atmosphere in terms of the guys that were coming in on visits or the guys that had committed, like Justin. You guys would come in, and in terms of like how to build it, it was tough. Like, people think that it just happened overnight. Those first 2 years with Coach Kruger, we went 17-14 and 17-15, and we were taking L's. And I always say, like, the reason that we had success my last 2 years, and then your years, Justin, leading into Coach Rice, was because of the sacrifices that guys like Robert Berkey, Colin Darford, Dustin Villapeg, Lou Amundsen, Jarrell Blassingame, O'Darty Blankson, Romel Beck, like those guys on those teams, and Ricky Morgan, like, we struggled. And then my freshman year, we had those three guys, the killer bees, they called them, Jarrell, Romel, and ODOT, and they were all preseason first-team all-conference. I don't think any of them ended up on first-team all-conference at the end of the season. But, like, there were so many expectations and so many egos, and Coach always said, we got to do things the right way, and we have to commit. And he said, you guys are going to be the reason that we build a foundation to have success later. And he wasn't just saying that, but we had to believe him. And it's true. Like, the reason that we got to go to the tournament is because of Dustin Villapeg and Robert Berkey and those guys making those sacrifices. Because you look at it, in the course of, Coach Kruger's tenure, they went 162-71.
That's hard. That's hard.
That's crazy. In 4 NCAA tournaments in 7 years.
That's hard.
That's tough to do. And you talk about when Rice came in, you guys had that foundation already built. And that's why I think it was tough from the transition from Coach Kruger to Coach Rice. Because you guys went 51-19 those first 2 years with Coach Rice, went to 2 NCAA tournaments. But then, and this is not a bad thing, but you started to see a different kind of shift in philosophy and in terms of kind of the types of guys that they were recruiting. And we started to lose some of that foundation in terms of, like, team first and everybody sacrificing for each other. And I think that's important. I think that's how you have to build a college program. I think you have to have guys that are 3, 4, 5-year guys that are going to redshirt, because you got to get guys there that are going to commit to it, being selfless. And they may not have the success, but they're going to be the reason that teams have the success down the line. And then they're the reason that we still talk about guys like Dustin Villapeg, about Lou Amundsen, Robert Berkey, who's now an insurance agent in town in Vegas, Colin Darford, the head coach at Silverado High School. Like, those guys are the reason that I had success. And then those guys like Scotty Hoffman, those are the reason that you had success, and Steve Jones. Like, it continues to move down the line. And I think that's why it's important to have this UNLV family be so tight-knit. And Steven, I'll share this. Every guy I talked with over the last 4 or 5 days talking to Coach Hill, I let them all know that I was going to work harder and do better to make sure that we have a tighter, close-knit Rebel alumni community, because it's not just going to help us all in times like this, in times of loss, but in times of good, it's going to be the foundation for this program moving forward. And I think we've lost that over the last 6-7 years. There's not a lot of influence from the older guys to give back to the community and let these young guys know, like Marvin, to let them guys know that, hey, we're here for you. This is how you can do it. You can always lean on us if need be.
Let's close on this with Justin, because he's got a game coming up, and we appreciate all the time. We got to do this again because I know there's a lot of stories you guys can tell and on ESPN Las Vegas. Curtis Terry's with us. Justin Hawkins, of course, Jayhawk was with the UNLV program from 2009 to 2013 and is now coaching at Pacific. You mentioned Marvin, so that's Marvin Coleman. Let's talk about this year's team real quick, and then Curtis is going to stick around and get us a preview of the Boise trip here. But how important is the point guard? How important is leadership? To me, the audience should be so impressed by what you said a couple of minutes ago, that Marvin Coleman is talking to guys like you, and he's asking questions like, how do I do it? How do I execute being a leader? The guy is out right now. He's got multiple, fractures in his leg, but he is still interested in making sure that he's a leader, and when he can play, he's ready to go.
I've known Marvin since, I got to school in 2009. Probably since 2009, because I remember him coming to Rebel camps. I've known Marvin for that long, and he's always been around. Then when I started coaching high school basketball in Vegas, he went to Foothill. I coached at Liberty. We had to play them multiple times, and he would always ask me. And leadership is very important. Leadership is very important. Leadership doesn't have to be your best player. Mm-hmm. It does not have to be your best player. I wasn't the best player on our teams, and I was the captain. I felt like, for me, being a great leader, you have to lead from the middle, because you got to know what the top is doing, but you also got to know what the bottom is doing. And so you get both sides. And I think Marvin understands that, and he's trying his best to do that. And I think leadership is important because you understand what your coaching staff is trying to say. And then throughout the course of the year, this happens with every team. The coaches, their voice falls on deaf ears. I don't care what team you're a part of, their voice falls on deaf ears. So that leader on the team, whether it's 1 or 2 guys, even 3 guys, they have to be able to reiterate that message to the team in a way that they're going to understand and respond. And I think Marvin has done that because he has sacrificed so much. And they know that whenever he speaks, it's coming from a place that's selfless, and he only wants success from the team. And I think these guys, I watch as much as possible. I see the box score, and I think they're there. I understand. I see the philosophy. I see what's trying to happen. It's just the consistent play that has to come up. But I feel like losing the summer and the fall hasn't helped, and then taking a month off in December, early January doesn't help either, So that's really hard to do. But, I see what they're trying to do. I see the vision. I understand it. It's just patience. A lot of those young guys, as CT says, they're 2, 3, 4 year guys. And so you just got to understand, this is a free year. This is a free year that they can learn the ins and outs of college basketball with no penalty. So they got to understand that.
I couldn't say it better myself, man. And Rebel fans, and people in Vegas, this is Justin Hawkins. They went to 4 straight NCAA tournaments, man. He won over 100 games. They've lost not even 30. And like you mentioned, you don't got to be the best player on the team to be the leader. It's the selfless position. For me, it was, Wink Adams was the best player. My senior year, whatever we need to do to win, I was willing.
That was awesome. Justin, thank you so much. I know you've got the game coming up. Well, we really appreciate it.
No, of course. Thank you for having me.
All right, good deal. You guys got to – I don't know if you guys want to say goodbye to each other or whatever you want to do.
All right, Jayhawk. I'll holler at you, man. Good luck tonight.
Yep, no, appreciate it. Appreciate it.